The fire crackled, a comforting sound. Normally, tonight, it did little to soothe her unease. The woman sat alone, book in hand, yet her eyes darted around the room. Something felt off, a prickling sensation, like eyes on her back. She tried to dismiss it, a draft perhaps. The house was old, prone to creaks and groans, but the feeling persisted. It wrapped around her like a cold, damp fog. Her sanctuary, her haven, suddenly felt alien. She chided herself for being foolish. Fear was a fickle beast, preying on vulnerability. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, observed by something unseen. Outside, the wind picked up. Branches scraped against the windows, mimicking fingers tapping for entry. Her heart pounded in her chest, a frantic drum against the silence of the house. She tried to focus on the book. The words blurred, meaningless. Her gaze kept returning to the shadows in the corners, the spaces where the firelight couldn't reach. They seemed to writhe and deepen. A floorboard creaked upstairs. Just the house settling, she told herself, but her breath hitched in her throat. It sounded again, closer this time, just outside the living room door. She listened intently, holding her breath. Silence. Then, a soft whisper, barely audible. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. She spun around, searching for the source of the whisper. Nothing. Just the flickering shadows cast by the firelight. Her pulse raced, a frantic rhythm against the silence that followed. She tried to rationalize, a trick of the wind perhaps, an auditory hallucination brought on by stress. But deep down, a primal fear whispered a different truth. Movement in the periphery, a fleeting glimpse of something dark and shapeless. She whirled around, but there was nothing there. Just the empty room, silent and watchful. She was being toyed with, her fear a delicious morsel savored by something unseen. The thought sent shivers down her spine, colder than the autumn air outside. Section 4. Seeking solace, finding none. She rose from her chair, needing to break free from the oppressive atmosphere. Pacing the room, she checked the locks on the windows, the bolt on the front door, a futile attempt to regain a sense of control. Each creak of the floorboards, every rustle of leaves against the window pane, sent her heart into overdrive. Her senses were on high alert, attuned to every minute detail, every subtle shift in the air. She considered calling for help, but who would believe her? Who would understand this creeping dread that had taken root in her heart? She was alone, trapped in a nightmare that was slowly bleeding into reality. And the worst part, the gnawing certainty that this was only the beginning. Section 5. A presence unseen, yet felt. The whisper came again, this time closer, laced with an icy malice that chilled her to the bone. It was no longer a question of if, but what. What lurked in the shadows, toying with her sanity. She could feel it now, a palpable presence in the room, cold, calculating, and utterly malevolent. It watched her, studied her, as a predator might its prey. The fire sputtered, casting dancing shadows that seemed to mock her fear. The wind howled outside, a mournful symphony that spoke of unseen dangers. She was trapped, a prisoner in her own home. And as the night wore on, the whispers grew louder, more insistent, a chorus of voices drawing her deeper into the abyss of fear. She was no longer alone, of that she was certain. Section 6. The lingering dread. Morning arrived, pale and wan, offering little solace. The events of the night lingered like a bad taste, a chilling reminder that the darkness held secrets best left undisturbed. The rational part of her mind tried to dismiss it all as a figment of her imagination. But deep down, a primal fear whispered a different truth. Something had watched her, unseen, in the darkness. And as she went about her day, a persistent unease clung to her. The feeling of being watched, of being hunted, never truly faded. It lurked in the shadows, waiting for the sun to set, waiting for the moment it could reclaim her fear. The question was not if it would return, but when. And this time, would she be ready?